Wanted to start talking about the #1 dad book. Why did you decide to write it?
I looked around and I just see so many guys are in trouble, they're lost, they're overwhelmed, they're not the breadwinners anymore, they don't know where they fit in, and that affects in a negative way their ability to be dads. And I just think it's probably the most important thing you do is to actually be a pretty good father. And the subhead for this book is how to be the best dad you can be in 1 hour. And a lot of dads, they don't have anybody to talk to. They'll go out with their friends and they won't talk about being a dad or being a father. They'll talk about football and whatever, cars, et cetera, et cetera. My father, the only time I remember him giving me a hug was on his deathbed. And that was a little bit the way a lot of dads were in that age. But still, so we have a page on just hugging and how important it is.
And why? I was going to ask you about that in a couple other
parts.
Because,
with my father, it wasn't useful in terms of us being close. And I have one of my good friends, still a good friend from college, and I was at his house one night, and his two boys both played football. So we all had dinner, and then the boys were heading out the door. And my friend said, where do you think you're going? You come over here. And he made them both give him a hug before they went out for a Friday night to go mess around. And that was a lesson for me. And so with our son, Jack.
What was the
every
lesson?
time, the lesson was, for me, every time Jack comes, he gets a hug. Anybody who's watching, any woman, whether it's a wife, a mother-in-law, a grandmother, especially mother-in-laws, give this thing to these guys, because this to me is a good deed. I won't make any money on this thing. This is
Why not?
I don't know, because I'm going to make sure it works. So I'll spend whatever I have to do to make sure that we get the message out there, so people are aware that this exists and what it is, which is just this very, very helpful thing about consistency, why consistency is important as a dad. Dads need to be consistent, and because consistency builds trust. And you need to have some trust. So that's a piece of it. Listening is huge. Listening. We guys are not necessarily the best listeners in the world.
Something else you wrote about in the book was the importance of reading to your kid. And then at 4 or 5 years old, making sure the kid starts reading to you.
Yes.
Why?
Yeah. Well, because trust them. At a certain point, like with Jack, when Jack was, I think, 5 months old, Sue threw him in the swimming pool. Boom, there you go. We knew it'd be okay, and we're right there, and we pull him out. There's a certain point you got to, push them. Be able to say no to them, and that doesn't mean you don't love them. I mean, that's one of the problems with some parents. They're afraid to say no because, they won't be with my friend. Yeah, they will be. But listen to their stories. Tell them your story. Who are you? What's the deal? What do you stand for? What are your values? What are your, as they get older, stuff like that. So, but the whole thing here is to engage with guys, and especially because for a lot of them, they don't have anybody to engage with. And all through the book, it's continually saying, if this doesn't make sense to you, just go to the next page, because some of the stuff you're not going to buy into. You might not be a hugger. Okay, that's fine. Saying I love you. A lot of guys have trouble saying I love you. And the book helps you to practice a little bit. And you may not be able to do that. Fine, go to the next page. But at the end of it, 1 hour, and I think this is a promise that it's a guarantee I could make. If you read this book in 1 hour, you will be a better dad. You'll be a better partner too. And I think that's useful.
You said life is a game where you're juggling 5 balls. All but work are made of glass. Explain that.
We need to learn to balance. And that reality of it is, yes, work is, it's not as important as we make it out to be. It is important, but there are more important things. I was very careful not to make the book about me or about Jack or about Sue and Jack and I. But the one thing I do say is that I read everything I could read. So I did the reading for you, and I talked to hundreds of dads. Had I done that before we had Jack, I would have been a better dad. Guaranteed.
Really?
Guaranteed, absolutely.
What would you have done differently?
I think I would have been more present. I could have been more open to doing stuff like, okay, I don't like to go like the Galapagos Islands and stuff like that, but I could have and I should have. I think I would have pushed him a little bit more in terms of sports. We kind of let him find his own way, and he had it in his head that he wasn't a good athlete. Maybe Sue sort of intimidated him being a great athlete.
I read in one article you said he enjoyed cooking more than golf.
Yeah, and that's fine. And that's another thing with kids. You kind of have to let them. Yeah, that's fine. That's cooking. And one of the things with Jack is I never say I'm proud of him. I say I'm happy for you. Proud of him sometimes means they're doing what you want them to do. Oh my God, I always wanted you to be a writer. He's not a writer, he's in finance. Not the ideal career that I would have picked, but he's happy doing it, so I'm happy for him. And I think that's useful too. A lot of it is just, you think, and guys, they don't think about it as much as they ought to. And most guys and women, they're not prepared for the bond that winds up with them and this little baby. It's stunning. Kind of, like, oh my God,